It's time for another Two Women Talking. I am Leanna Kersner, tomboy.
I am Song W. Erickson, girly girl.
And hot take time. New topic, hot take. Stop politicizing media. Now, that's a big statement, Song W. Erickson. And
yes.
Yeah, and we're going to go a bunch of different ways. But you actually suggested this topic. So
yes,
where do you want to start?
I'm actually going to start with another. I don't even think it's a hot topic at this point. The idea that the golden age of television that people attribute to starting with The Sopranos, I think that's over. And I think overly politicized storytelling killed it.
Interesting. Because you're talking Sopranos kind of through Mad Men, started kind of falling apart with Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I think it is scheduling that killed it.
I think it's a mix of that and also, you know, the way things fractured into streaming. Because like it was one thing, you know, you had the HBO package, you could watch Sopranos, you could watch Game of Thrones when that came.
Right.
You could watch, you know, as long as you had a premium cable package, essentially, you were caught up. But now we have all these streaming services where it's like, oh, well, Tulsa King is over on Paramount and House of the Dragon is over on HBO. Yeah. The Mandalorian is on Disney Plus.
Yeah, Ted Lasso on Apple TV. Yeah.
Apple TV is the weird one because, like, does anyone actually watch Apple TV?
Apple nerds.
That makes sense. Because
yeah, people in Los Angeles have Apple TV, I think because they do incentive packages with wireless carriers and stuff like that. But yeah, Apple TV is very much LA, Chicago, New York phenomenon. Yeah.
That explains it, yeah.
Because nobody else can freaking afford it.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, you want to watch Bridgerton, you have to have Netflix. Guess who had to pay for Netflix for the first time in our life this month?
The Boys is on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
You know, so is Has Been Hotel. I mean, you know, Amazon is becoming the filthy deviant streaming platform that everybody has because free shipping.
And even Rings of Power, regardless of what I think of that series, that's on Prime too. And like, here's the thing. I'm not saying that there are not good shows, because like we talked about Has Been.
Oh, I freaking love The Boys. Love The Boys.
You love The Boys. Yeah. I'm really enjoying Bridgerton even more than I expected.
Delicious in Dungeon on Netflix is excellent. Sweet Tooth on Netflix, really good. I'm trying to think of other things. I jump around so much. Stranger Things, I still enjoy, but it's so long between. It's the miniseries from the 80s comeback as opposed to these must-see TV. I mean, even The Sopranos was in the first golden age of television. The Norman Lear sitcoms of the late 70s through the 80s, that was another golden age of, but I mean, those shows, oh my God, All in the Family, Sanford and Son. I was talking about, obviously I was seeing it in reruns when I saw Sanford and Son, and Lamont, Fred Sanford's son, was and Fred Sanford was a single dad because his wife Lisbeth had died, and the run-on joke was every time Fred would use this guilt tactic.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Lisbeth, it's the big one. I'm coming, honey. You know, and
his son is just rolling his eyes.
And his son is a guy in the 70s. So it's like Meathead and Archie in All in the Family. There is this generation gap, and they dealt with a lot of political themes. And I remember falling off the couch when I saw Lamont was dating a white woman. And they did the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner thing, and Fred came over. Now, Fred is a junk dealer, so it wasn't just race, it was also class. And Fred went into this very nice Beverly Hills style house, and he said, "This house has no smell. Smells like lettuce." And I fell off the couch because I am uncomfortable when a house has no smell. I cook. My house has a smell. It's a different smell depending on what I'm cooking, but there's always some food smell in
Mm-hmm.
my house. And I go into homes of relatives or friends that live in the suburbs, and their homes look like, I don't know, it's like those 90s tunnel shooters,
Mm-hmm.
with all the right angle walls and all that stuff. And it's very Pottery Barn meets Wayfair. I order from Wayfair, nothing wrong with that, but it's very basic and very, we must look the same as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no smell because they don't cook. They have these
Mm-hmm.
massive kitchens. They have kitchens as large as a downtown condo that they don't use to reheat anything but vegan chicken nuggets.
Ew.
Yeah. And vegan chicken nuggets have gotten okay. The Gardein chicken patties, you gotta watch because they're still highly processed food.
Yeah.
But damn, that is a crutch of mine. Now, for people who don't know, I can't eat meat. It's not that I choose to not eat meat. So obviously, I mean, when I do Solomon in Boss Fight, he was abducted because he thought the ring at the doorbell was his farm to table food box delivery service. At the time, I was actually using farm to table food box delivery services because I was moving and didn't have time to go shopping. But every time it came, even though I was doing it to be completely useful, I was like, fuck, this is so pretentious. And that's why I love little lines on The Boys. There's this throwaway line in episode 1 of season 4 where they're talking about Starlight sucking power from the local energy grid. And Butcher just throwaway line, what would Greta think? And that's it. It's gone. They don't lampshade it. Nobody stops and looks at it. It's just this little throwaway line. And somebody would say, that's politicizing the show. First of all, it's
No,
the
it's not.
holy fuck. But second of all, that is Billy Butcher's character, that he is a very self-destructive person who does believe in trying to help the right thing along. He just can't stand people like Greta Thunberg.
Mm-hmm.
They do things like that all the way through. And I read an interview with Eric Kripke, because if The Boys is the next wave
Mm-hmm.
of must-see TV, um, and it's one of those shows like I Love Lucy, like Seinfeld, it took time to build. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a massive hit at first. It needed to, I think people really jumped on when they introduced Stormfront. But I mean, again, her name was Stormfront, right? Like that was not subtle. But if that's the new um wave of TV,
Mm-hmm.
um I'm there for it. But it is, I mean, they took the George W. Bush, if he were black character from the comics, and made him AOC. They've now merged her with a Kamala Harris type figure. I mean, the reason I don't think The Boys is, people are reading politics into it, but I think it's more of a cry for help mixed with a warning shot, is because they obviously borrow from MAGA-ism,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, right down to Homelander's slightly orange hair. But they also show the issues with figures like AOC, and they're taking on black academics now. Like they've got gender swapped Ibram X Kendi this season, who is terrifying. Terrifying. But to me, it's all character,
Mm-hmm.
right? To the point that there's a book that she's reading on the toilet in the first episode, and it's names, I forget. Anyway, I'm like, this is a strange philosophy book for her to be reading. And
Mm-hmm.
I follow Eric Kripke on Twitter.
Yeah, didn't it turn out like it's his cousin's book?
His cousin is a philosopher who deals with one of the things he introduced, is the idea of a posteriori necessities.
In layman's terms, please.
Basically, something that happened because it needed to happen, but you don't
Ah,
realize it was necessary until it's already happened. Hence, a posteriori, posterior, past, posterior. Just think of it like the butt, it's behind
yeah.
you, as opposed to a priori, priority happens first. But yeah, the fact that he used a family's book, that I was like, what? Why that? Didn't think Saul Kripke, Eric Kripke, right? But and obviously the whole family's brilliant,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a personal touch that to me embeds what's going on in character and theme and plot, not politics. And I'm curious on what you think of this, because to me, politics is when a show stops dead to do this treatise on something like
Yes.
the book version of Wicked.
Yes. And that's when it stops being storytelling
Yeah.
and it starts to verge on propaganda.
Yeah.
um and not necessarily always, because sometimes it's just the author getting on their soapbox about something. Like I never finished the Wicked book.
It's
uh
so bad. Sorry.
yeah,
It's
no, and that's why I didn't. And when we recently did the video talking about Calidus Chronicles Volume 2, I talked about my experience with watching Mary Poppins as a kid.
mhm.
And you get to the second and third act and things start to get grimy and a little scary, and it's a minor key. And as a kid, I'm going, I don't like this. No, I'm uncomfortable.
Okay, but
And
Mary Poppins is an interesting one
yeah, but
because the who's the mom in Mary Poppins?
the suffragette.
That's right. Could you imagine if
Oh
Disney
God.
put a woman's march? Because the whole thing about Mrs. Banks is she was so busy being a suffragette, she wasn't looking after her children.
Mm-hmm.
And that, could you imagine today if that were put in? Because that was a very nuanced detail.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, part of that was, it's Americans doing a British story that's set in a past era that, they
Mhm.
didn't really have any experience with. So it's like, I didn't really think of the fact that, she's not around, because like even as a kid, I knew, oh yeah, kids had nannies, they had governesses. That's just, I'd seen
Yeah.
enough period pieces by that point to know that's how things worked.
Which
It
is why
wasn't,
they didn't need that detail.
yeah. And it wasn't until I was watching Saving Mr. Banks, which was the movie about the making of
So good.
that movie is so good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so for those who don't know, it's basically the battle of wills between Walt Disney and P.L. Travers about the ahead of the making of the movie.
And
I don't want to say it's about the making of the movie.
Disney let them be honest about how manipulative Walt was on that one too. He was almost like a fanfic writer. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Walt Disney was a fan fiction writer, right?
Yes.
I'm going to adapt all these fairy tales, but make it for my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he was so connected.
Well, I mean, something I've been saying recently, and I don't know if I've even said it on Two Women Talking or just in general, but there is this kind of theme I've noticed of problematic people get shit done.
Yeah.
And like this was something I really realized with the whole Vivzy Pop has been hotel thing, is people can scream about how problematic she is for valid or invalid reasons, whatever it is, but she got it done. she
Yeah.
she
And
made a web comic, then she made a pilot that
yep.
went over incredibly well.
And I
And
mean, there are clear points of view
mhm,
in those shows.
yeah, and I mean, same thing could be said of Walt Disney. Was he perfect? No, but he got it done. And we see all these people who can, they can be like, oh well, this problem or that problem, and he did this or he did that. And it's like, okay, but he built something. And obviously, even as someone who really enjoys criticism in a way, and I can be what some people would call a hater.
As long as people actually read the book.
Yes. But I'm, people like Disney, people like Vivzy Pop. I give them so
Yeah.
much credit for doing something. Even Taylor Swift, all of my issues I have with her. You know what? One of her recent lyrics was, I put narcotics in all of my songs, and that's why
Yes.
you're still singing along. And I'm like, fuck.
I
That's
still can't
like,
get through Antihero. I still
no.
can't. See, Taylor Swift, Vivzy Pop, I just want to give them a hug. I want to give Sarah J. Maas a hug. It's like these women do not have older women to
No.
talk to. And those are people claim things are political in things created by women.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even Bridgerton, the hot takes on Bridgerton,
Oh,
they're
God.
killing me. But it's
Mm-hmm.
because, for whatever reason, male authors, The Witcher is incredibly political.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, I got just roasted during Gamergate because I said the Witcher franchise is made of rape. And then this guy, it was V. I don't know if he's still around, but V's from Romania, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went on a stream of his and I said, let me tell you what I mean by that, because this is rooted in the Polish experience. And not only was the land raped and the culture raped, the people were literally raped as the Russians and the Germans were rolling back in and out of that country during and after World War II. And V,
Mm-hmm.
the Romanian dude, is like, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I'm unfortunately one of these people where the reason I love Eric Kripke's stuff is he's able to look at him and his writing team, of course, are
Mm-hmm.
able to look at all the horror in our modern world and somehow make sense of it. Like, they understand what drives a guy like Homelander. They understand they're they're getting into what's wrong with Starlight,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And the fact that they keep using that girls get it done, fight like girls
Mm-hmm.
tagline, the fact they keep digging at pop feminism. I mean, the show's been satire from the beginning, but if that had been a female showrunner, I love Eric Kripke, but if that had been a female showrunner, there would have been all the hot takes. The same way if The Witcher had been written by a woman, all the hot takes, not assuming this was just their opinion or theme. I
Mm-hmm.
do think female showrunners do get it rougher when they try to explore some of these concepts, including by other women. And this is where we come to our boobs are too big for Bridgerton.
Oh, God.
Like, this is, I sent Song an article. It was on the CBC. It tried. It really tried. Like, this is the internalized misogyny in feminism. And I am so here for tearing it apart.
Yes, please. Let's go.
Yeah, because I've said before, I like what they're doing on Bridgerton.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like the concept of, yeah, I know a lot of women I know a lot of men who are bigger,
Mm-hmm.
they're fluffy, and they have women fighting over them. These women have men fighting over them. Some women just have something, and it doesn't have anything to do with how they look. It doesn't have anything to do with what their hair is like or all that stuff we're told matters. There's just something about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Penelope, quite frankly, her face shape is more of the ideal, that sort of rounded chin
Mm-hmm.
is much more of the ideal of a Regency lady than what we tend to see in media.
This is true.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, why are you insisting that she's not hot enough to get a man, ladies? That was considered hot back then. Maybe not quite as up big
Mm-hmm.
as she is, but I mean, there was a fuller lower half. I mean, Regency gowns were designed to emphasize that kind of pear-shaped form
Yeah.
in a way that we would consider unflattering now, but they were supposed to make you look pregnant, aka fertile,
Yes.
right? And so the beauty standard was clearly very, very different. But yeah, this article was like, stop commenting on women's bodies. Let's focus on their acting. Stop commenting on women's bodies. Stop commenting on women's bodies. And then right at the end, they quote this feminist academic who were like she's close but not quite on the depiction of Penelope, right? And what I hope to see is plus size women who, I don't know if she said plus size, but curvy women.
Mm-hmm.
Curvy women. And I have issues with that term, but one thing at a time. I can only use words. I can't
Mm-hmm.
bigenerate my sentences. Yeah. Curvy women who are seen as desirable and sexy and beautiful without being hypersexualized by things like having large breasts.
Hey, Nicola Coughlan, who plays Penelope, she's very pretty, and her boobs aren't that big.
No,
Like, I literally just saw her naked last night.
she's a solid C, which
Yeah,
good for her. She can buy shit at regular stores. I can't.
yeah, no, it's and when I say I saw her naked last night, it's because I was at the Steamy episode, guys. Nothing untoward.
Let them imagine song. Let them imagine.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, she's. I don't know if I would say she's leaning into it. She's been jabbing back at the people giving her a hard time. It started with, even as they were promoting part 1 of this season, she was like, yeah, no, I told the producers I wanted to be very naked. And I wanted to embrace that, and that, when I'm older, I want to be able to look back on this and remember how hot I was. And like, I don't want to say posturing, but I can also see a bit. It's a bit of a fuck you.
She is giving the unexpected, unfeminine answer.
Yes, and then with the promotion for the second part of the season, because they did a split season a month apart, she said, someone made a comment, and she said, well, there's a lot of women who they don't see themselves, and by that I mean women with perfect breasts. And I'm like, oh, go you.
Oh, I love that line. I was like, girl, well done.
Yes. So I was like, oh yeah, no, this girl knows how to spar. And so and then like I said, saw her naked last night, absolutely beautiful. And just, she's like a Rubenesque statue.
Rubenesque is the perfect way to describe her figure. Yeah.
And I'm just like, dang, she's also got great skin, which, like, girl, tell me how. Which, I mean, good smooth skin goes a long way when it comes to attraction. But yeah, and so I'm like, yeah, she's beautiful. Now, I do think they're doing her a disservice with her wig.
Yeah.
Like, both that it's flat and it's a bit stringy.
They're going for that. They're trying to split Regency hairstyles and pin up.
And here's the thing, I don't even mind the hairstyle. I think the hairstyle could be great. It just, one, needs a little more volume at the roots.
Yes.
The wig itself needs some extensions to fill it in.
Yeah.
And again, something about the wig, I'm just like, it's not silky.
Doctor Who outdid Bridgerton in one episode.
Yeah. And just all the other wigs are fine. There's just something about Penelope's, whereas, one, I don't think the hairdresser actually knew how to do the vintage style old Hollywood waves.
You know what it could be is that the production crew. This has happened to my hair
Mm-hmm.
when I was on TV. The production crew asked for too many changes, and they
Mm.
do it after a styling product has already been applied. And so fixing it, you have to, because you
Mm-hmm.
can't say no, but it actually does create that flat, kind of dull, lackluster, overdone look.
Yeah, her hair is also pretty dull.
Yeah.
That's and like guys, I'm not being critical of her, or I'm being critical of the production.
The styling, yeah.
Yeah, and the styling. I will also say this is like, aside from Penelope, it's the weakest season costume wise. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Uh
the fabrics they're using
the
are
the
weird.
fat the fabrics they're using are cheap, and they've gone way too far into avant-garde in some cases, and I'm not even talking about the Queen's Clockwork wig. That was cool.
Yeah, it's almost like they thought because Game of Thrones got away with very flammable polyester in where Daenerys was camped in that kind of desert
Yeah.
place, that I mean Rings of Power did it too. They're using very shiny fabrics, and this is what Doctor Who and the BBC was like, nope, we know how to do this. Matte
Again,
fabrics, let
I
it
don't
soak up light.
I don't even mind the shiny fabrics so much, more just the texture of some of the fabrics they're using. And some of the patterns on said fabrics have
Yeah.
more of a 60s decos pattern, which, yeah.
Yeah, they're experimenting, and okay, cool. Right? I mean, I also I wonder if they're playing with the fact that yes, they're doing the high fashion, the gaudiness, and that's not what's important.
Mm-hmm.
What's important is her character. So maybe the garishness is kind of deliberate.
I will say, Penelope's dresses don't have that garishness. It's
Hmm.
more in everyone else that I see it, particularly Cressida Cowper.
Okay.
Um, and even Eloise and Francesca has these weird shoulders on her jackets.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're trying to make a statement about trends. I
Maybe.
don't know. I mean, that's the thing. This is, some people would say that's political.
Yeah. And like, here's the thing with a character like Cressida, who, it's her third season.
Hmm.
So she's panicking because her family is starting to threaten her if she
Hmm.
doesn't find a husband. And so it's very clear she's trying to do the bird plumage thing, where
Right.
it's like her hair and her dresses are becoming so crazy to try and catch attention. And I'm going, honey, none of those dresses are going to help with your attitude.
And I think that's the theme of the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and then you've got Eloise who's hanging out with Cressida, so it makes sense her costumes are going that direction. But I don't understand the shoulders on Francesca's dresses. I just don't get that.
And that's the thing, right? If they make a choice like that, this is where some of the marketing confuses me. If they make a choice like that, of course people are going to comment. Of course not
Mm-hmm.
everybody is going to get it.
Yeah.
Uh Complaining about that when you do something challenging, that's when I think that these shows start dropping the ball and they get too close to making a point instead of telling a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
not the work itself. It's the conversation that they engage in uh around the show. Instead of, Eric Kripke going, there are people out there who think Homelander is the hero of the boys. I don't get it. Okay, I'm glad you enjoy it. I don't know what more I can do.
yeah. It, and I mean that's the actual definition of death of the author,
Yeah.
right? Is it's not, oh, the author's a bad person, but I'm going to read this anyway because I like it. That's not death of the author. That's you being stubborn and willful. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I joked that Loki was secret MVP of MCU long before they actually did it. But and so when they did that, I'm like, oh shit, have they been looking at my tweets? Um, But that again was, I think some people think there's a grand plot to what Disney does.
No.
And that, first of all, that's not how they run their productions at all. Also, I don't think they realize how much they are flailing right now.
No, and here's the thing. We see a lot of writers coming up who, how do I put this politely?
They have things to say.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying all these writers have come from Tumblr, but there are a lot of Tumblr elements and attitudes that I see in the upcoming writers who are about my own age, a few years older. And part of it is a result of the media we've consumed.
But really, how different is that from Hemingway and his very clear, this is how to be a man?
I don't know.
It's no different.
No. And there is that, so many people, I think they're almost trying too hard to say something. Yeah. Or you get I just want to write fan fiction about this character I think is cool, but in doing so, I'm also going to project all my own stuff onto them.
They're trying to create acceptance through writing instead of just, I'm not a fan of, let's see where the story goes, because you do have to outline. I'm somebody who, I need an ending before I can actually start writing a story, because I need to know where I'm going.
Yeah.
But,
and like,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, even with Calidus, a lot has changed since I started writing it.
Oh, that happens for sure.
Yeah, but it's like at the same time, and part of it also is, if you know your characters, like I have my character Richard, I know where he's going. He has never questioned that one day in his entire life since he sat up in my head and said,
"That's so very him."
Yeah, he knows where he's going. Everyone else has kind of changed. Well, not Runa. Runa has also been
also very her. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like Hammond's character hasn't changed, but like exactly what he's going to be dealing with through the story has shifted a little. But it's also not something that changes the story overall. It's something for me to be aware of as what I'm working towards. And ultimately, so like where everyone ends up hasn't really changed. Some of the things getting there have adapted over time. It just, that's how story works. So it's like, there's the debate of, oh, is it better to be a plotter or a pantser, as they call it in the writing community, which is like, plot, you have an outline, you stick to it, that's your story. Pantser, you're making it up as you go. Personally, I think the best thing to do is be somewhere in the middle, which is like, have an idea of the points you want to hit, have an idea of where you're going, but then also like let your characters guide it. And that's a problem when you have characters who aren't set. And if you don't have established characters and you're just kind of twisting them to fit any situation to make the plot go where you want it to, that's where you're going to start running into problems.
Yeah, you're doing a polemic at that point instead of I think the supremacy of the character-driven storyline is overdone as well. There are perfectly good plot-driven storylines out there. However, yes, you do need, because people's inner essence doesn't change. They can change based on experience in terms of worldview, but they don't become completely different people unless all of a sudden Kenneth Branagh loses control of a character because he doesn't do sequels, Joss Whedon takes over, and I'm back to Loki again. That was just, see, nobody gave a shit that he suddenly started acting like a completely different person except me, because the guys who wanted to be the asshole and still have a place in the story felt seen
Mm-hmm.
by his Norse Hitler turn. Meanwhile, I was sitting there going, this is not him. This is not the character as established. This is Joss Whedon putting on a Loki helmet.